Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guests, we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges, and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode. I'm delighted to be joined again today by Chezzy Kennedy, Neurodiversity Director at Thrive. So, welcome, Chezzy. And in today's episode, we're actually going to be discussing neurodiversity in the workplace, what employees can do to cater better to neurodiverse employees, and how to adapt an environment to a place where everyone can succeed. So, we're recording this on a very warm summer's day. We're talking about droughts in the UK, apparently, not up north, but down south. And for today's icebreaker, I thought I would ask you, Chezzy, what's your favourite ice cream flavour?
Oh, I can no longer have dairy, and one of the things I really miss is the good old fashioned Mr. Whippy with a flake. I miss that. But other than that, I will have just one of those lemonade flavoured lollies.
Nice. Well, one of my favourites, or possibly my favourite, would be what we call a lemon top. And what that is like a Mr. Whippy style vanilla with a lemon sorbet on top. So nice. You could actually have the lemon sorbet bit, I would assume.
Yes. And I thought you were going to say something like when I was a kid, it was all the rage to have a witch's hat, which was where you got the ice cream and a rocket lolly. That was like 2 for the price of 1.
Oh, wow. I know, and then I'm going back now. When you said going back to childhood, I was thinking about screwballs and things like that.
Yeah.
There, oh wow! Oh, let's forget the main topic. Let's just talk about ice cream. Thank you, Chezzy. And if you are ever up in the northeast, pop to Redcar or Saltburn and get yourself a lemon top, but just have the lemon sorbet dairy free. Enjoy that. Okay, so over the past few years, we've seen awareness around neurodiversity continue to grow, and I've certainly seen a huge kind of uplift in that, probably over the last 12 months or so. With ADHD and autism probably having the most awareness or hitting more headlines than other conditions. So, just to start us off, I was just wondering if you could give us a bit of background on the most common conditions, Chezzy.
Yeah, so as you said, you've got autism and ADHD. They are kind of the big ones that are really being promoted like it's, hey, join our club, being talked about, and awareness is being raised. There's also a dyslexia, which is kind of where individuals have challenging processing letters. And then to mirror that, there's something called dyscalculia or dyscalculi, depending how posh you want to be, which is around numbers and data. Then there is dyspraxia, which is a motor movement condition. And there's dysgraphia. There's a lot of D's involved here. Dysgraphia, which is challenges physically writing. And then Tourette's syndrome, which is obviously the involuntary tics, be they physical tics, vocal tics, or verbal tics. The interesting thing with Tourette's syndrome is actually only 10% of individuals actually experience swearing tics, which is the condition that's promoted the most on social media. And as with all research into neurodiversity, there are many discussions going on whether conditions like schizophrenia or OCD also fall into that bracket. I'm not sure that there's been enough research for me to confidently say, yes, they are neurodiverse conditions, but watch this space as we all learn more.
And it's very interesting because I think, if I look at how kind of maybe understanding and awareness of the conditions has grown recently. Hopefully, the stigma that was maybe attached to them in previous years is also reduced. But I can also understand from a personal perspective that if you suffer from one of these conditions, you might feel perhaps a little reticent of sharing that fact with others. So if we're looking at it from a business perspective, how can businesses, what can we do to help employees to feel safe and supported so that if they wish to disclose their condition, they know we're there to help? How can we make them feel safe?
I think that one of the big things is to educate ourselves and to be focusing on strengths, not challenges. And there's still, even though there's a lot of knowledge out there, there's still a lot to be learned. And just thinking about, you said suffers. Well, again, people don't actually suffer with their condition. They suffer because of the way others treat them, or the fact that society's not really catering for the needs of neurodiverse individuals. And I think one of the big things, it is a huge thing, as you said, to come forward and disclose a condition like that, because sadly, there is still an awful lot of stigma. And although there's more conversations about it, there is still huge amounts of unconscious bias or even conscious bias when it comes to neurodiversity. But some of the things you can do as a business is to be proactive with reasonable adjustments so that they become part of a culture. And so when an individual meets maybe an employer for the first time and they've already had an interview where the questions were very direct, very clear, maybe they were told beforehand who was going to be on the interview panel, where to come, a photo of what the building looked like. So already you're thinking, wow, this employer has put things in place and they don't even know that this has helped me massively. So then when you have those proactive accommodations already in place, if you need a different type of accommodation, it doesn't feel like such a big ask.
Oh, interesting. And, it's interesting, and obviously the use of the word there, suffer, that I used, I apologise for that. And I suppose that again is understanding of it. And I've got, one of my sons has dyslexia, and what I always got frustrated about was how academia, if you like, when he was going from primary school to secondary school, and if you like, the curriculum was set in stone in one way, and he didn't learn that way. And trying to help him and support him, but also trying to speak to the school to say, look, can't you teach him in the way he learns, or how can we do this? And they were struggling because we only have a finite number of resources. We do give special help, but we have a curriculum and I think it's that old. I don't know if you've seen this, but it comes to my mind. It's a picture of a group of animals in the school. You've got a monkey, you've got an elephant, and whatever, and say, right, okay, what we're going to do today is to test you all. We're going to see how you can climb that tree.
Absolutely. It's such a poignant image straight away. I completely get that. But one of the really, in fact, Craig, this could be a podcast on its own, talking about the school system. It was set up for the industrial era. We're now in the technological era, yet we're still teaching children for the industrial era. It's no wonder individuals are struggling and not learning. The whole education system needs to restart. So, yeah, I best stop there because I could go for hours.
No, I think we might have to have a side conversation about that, because I feel quite passionate about that too. So okay then, so we talked there about how an employer can really share and touch on different elements to make people feel comfortable at interview level, etc., and coming into the building, perhaps, etc., before we can meet. But how can a neurodiverse employee, if you like, create or maintain boundaries in the workplace so they remain comfortable, but also are not, I suppose, discomforted by other happenings in the workplace?
It's a really interesting one, because boundaries are important for everybody, and we all as individuals need to be attuned to what makes us stressed, what makes us anxious, or even what causes us to underperform. And feeling confident enough to ask for accommodations that you might need, that's a huge step. Which is why, as I said earlier, it's going to be easier to create that culture of inclusion that really makes a difference, rather than just changing a few policies or putting a nice poster up. It's all about that deep understanding. And when we think of individuals in an office space and what can they do to make them feel more comfortable, it's a really, again, I just find it really fascinating that when we think of disability, it's one of the few areas where the onus is on the employee themselves to make the changes, which is crazy, isn't it? Employers don't expect staff to bring their own desk and chair to work, because that will make it more comfortable for them to sit at a computer. Yet disabled individuals are expected to know what they need to put in place. Yet some individuals don't even realise what they need. So what you kind of need to have an awareness and a dedicated group, or be it a really active group, or just a voluntary group, or actual members of staff who are there to advocate for individuals. Because when you understand different neurodiverse conditions and how an individual might struggle, to have somebody else to step forward and say, hey, I can see that you're really struggling in this environment. How about we move your desk over to this side of the room? Or would you rather that the rule that says if you make a cup of coffee, you've got to make everyone one, would you rather, because that breaks your flow and you then can't get back into doing what you're doing if you spent 20 minutes making coffee, would you rather we change it to everyone just makes their own coffee?
So I suppose in a way then, it's being aware, being open from an employer perspective. So somebody coming new into the organisation, we're sitting down during the induction, and perhaps as part of that we talk about any potential challenges they foresee, and that we are here to support them. Especially you've got the person doing the induction. I suppose different size businesses are going to have different people, and perhaps somebody from the HR team or whatever. So if we've got that champion to support that person in coming into the business and excelling in the business and succeeding, then hopefully by opening up that channel of communication, we can make it easier perhaps for the individual to open up.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's definitely more about just words. You do feel very vulnerable as a neurodiverse individual, and you're not, you said yourself about your son at school. So when you come into the office or any sort of adult business environment, you're carrying with you all of that stigma, all of that shame from school. That all still sits with you, whether you've unpacked that and let it go, you've still got it all there. So somebody just sat in front of you saying, hey, we're here to help you, just tell me what you need. If there's no physical evidence anywhere in the building that accommodations are in place for neurodiverse individuals, they're not going to feel comfortable in saying, do you know what? for example, I myself, in many jobs that I've had, I've been quite confident in saying, hey, I'm dyslexic, mainly because I know if I don't declare that, somebody will find out, because I really do struggle with the written side of things. But I've never shared, apart from now with Thrive, but before then I've never shared, oh, do you know what, I'm autistic? Because that's almost like you're too vulnerable. And I've never... I think the closest I've come is when those questions in interview, when they say, oh, tell me about a weakness of yours. And I think the closest I've come is I've often said, well, I can be quite direct with people and I don't mean to be rude. So that's the closest I've come.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. You said there, if there's no visible aspects within the office, then you may feel a bit more reticent of opening up. I suppose my question would be, what visible aspects would you expect to see?
It can be very, very subtle things. So, for example, going into an office and being told, oh, this is a quiet area where you can go and work quietly if you want to. There's nobody eats in here. You can go in there and work. Or we have a policy where if you've got your headphones on, that means no one's to disturb you. Looking around, you can sense that there's no flickering lights, or there isn't a loud clock in the room. And trust me, those little clocks that take the AA battery, oh, they are so loud. It's the tiny little things like that don't actually cost a lot, but they can let an individual know, oh, this is a safe space here.
Yeah. Oh, well, we don't have clocks because we don't want people to know what time it is to go home.
And like a casino.
Oops. Maybe I shouldn't say that live. But yeah, there are very, very interesting aspects of that, and thank you for that. That certainly does point out to things of how we introduce people in and the measures we can take to making the environment welcoming to everyone, because that's really what we want to do. We want to welcome everybody into the workplace and allow them to succeed, no matter who they are, what the background is, and what things what conditions, if you like, they bring with them. We want to help and support them.
Hi, we're the UK and Ireland SAP user group. Did you know we're a fiercely independent not-for-profit? Did you know we're a vibrant community of over 6,500 SAP users? And did you know we help each other by sharing resources, championing education, and influencing SAP's future development? Well, you do now. If you'd like to get the most from your SAP investments and be in the know, visit our website, sapusers.org/pod. We hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
I suppose, is there things that, for instance, you mentioned there, you haven't openly, said that you're autistic when you've been into a job, etc., until you got to Thrive. And, we've had some employees who have been dyslexic. And again, we haven't found out until they've actually been working in the organisation for some time when they've said, well, actually, I'm dyslexic, whatever. So is there something that we should be looking out for and enabling us to offer help and support, if you like, for those individuals perhaps that don't feel comfortable sharing, especially those, if we're looking at things like autism and ADHD, etc.
Yeah, so there's certain things you can do, but the really interesting thing I think about reasonable adjustments and accommodations for people is that when you get it right for a neurodiverse individual, you do actually support everybody. Because one of the key things that all neurodiverse individuals struggle with is something called executive functioning. And I think I've spoken about that before. It's kind of like air traffic control of the mind. It has to, your mind has to be able to organise thoughts, where things are, how you react to things. And if air traffic control is not doing a good job, there's carnage on the runway. So we need that in the brain to do the same thing. Now, if you're really stressed and you feel overworked, you open your emails, you've got 50 emails to plow through, you're going to feel even more stressed. Your mental health is going to get even lower. Your productivity is going to go down. Presenteeism is going to go up. But if you have a policy in place that says, if you want to send an email, only send it if it's really necessary. And at the top of your email, make it clear what it is you want, when you want it done by. And if there's a call to action, you make it really clear right at the top. If you need to write anything else in the email for context or whatever, put it in there, but it's got to be really clear. So straight away, that's helped the individual who's stressed, the individual with ADHD who hasn't got a lot of time to, they don't feel like they can sit and read through a load of emails. The dyslexic individual who can often miss bits of vital information, so that's straight at the top. Maybe the employee who English isn't their first language. You've helped so many people, and that's just by creating one policy. But the same thing you could have, and I know Network Rail are very good for doing this. They have accessibility software on every single computer and laptop within the building, which is amazing because if, let's say you broke your arm at the weekend and you've come to work, suddenly you can still type your emails because you've got text to speak there, or you've got other bits that are all encompassed. And it brings us back to the dyslexic individuals. Well, if you've got the software there in place anyway, it doesn't matter if you declare or not, because there's support for you that you can access to do your job the same as everybody else.
Cool. So I'm now going back to the clock thing. So if you break both your arms, I'll give you software that keeps you working, no time off. I'm loving this. But no, that is very, very interesting. And just while we're on that accessibility software that you mentioned there, is there multiple types of accessibility software? Is it available to everyone from anywhere?
There's many different products. There's Text to Help, which encompasses all sorts of kit. So you can have a screen reader, which will turn your screen a different colour to make written text more easier for you. There's software that will read words for you. There's a spell check. It's all kind of in one. And then you've got software like Dragon, which is a voice software. So you just put a headset on and you dictate what you want it to do. So that's there. And you've got software obviously like Grammarly, where it will check your spelling for you. But the interesting thing here with Grammarly is because it wasn't designed for neurodiverse individuals. So what Grammarly does, and I like Grammarly, so I do use it, but it stitched me up a few times because I read in code. So if I've written a word wrong and it will say, oh no, that's the wrong word, you need this word, I then can't read that one particular word because it's out of context. So I just assume it's the word that I want. So I'm like, yeah, I'll have that. And the amount of times, in fact, I know you've had, what was it? I know you've had Simon as a guest on your podcast a few times, and I wrote a report for him, and I was writing about how employees should be able to ask for accommodation without the fear of repercussions. That's what I thought I wrote. So I sent it to him, and the next minute he's on the phone in hysterics because Grammarly had changed it for the fact that you should be able to declare without the fear of reproductions. Which is funny, but not helpful.
Yeah, like auto spell on mobiles and things, and sending the amount of texts or things I've sent from a mobile with words that just are not what I meant. Yeah, that's very, very interesting. So, we talked there about accessibility, software, and how can kind of leaders within businesses ensure they develop a culture in their organisations where neurodiverse individuals are comfortable and able to express themselves? Because that's a key thing for me. How can I ensure that our business is open and welcoming to everyone?
Yeah. And I think the very key to that is education, and education coming from the top downwards. Because one of the things, especially if you really want to create the culture, you've got to get senior leadership buy-in first. And once senior leadership buy-in and employees can see, oh, this really is a value thing, this isn't a tick box exercise. And once everybody learns how different people think, process information, and how individuals all communicate differently, that itself is such a huge benefit. And then having everyone being open to understanding that we need to create policies that enable individuals to work towards their strengths, and removing policies that create barriers. So, for example, some companies have policies in place that are your performance managed on your ability to form connected relationships within your team. Well, if that's not part of that individual's job role and it's not essential to them, take it out, because that becomes a barrier. It's different if they are the customer relations expert. That's a bit different. But if they're not, if it's just Jim from IT and his job is to come and fix the laptop, does it really matter if Jim hasn't got the niceties and isn't making everybody feel like they've shared with them what they did at the weekend? It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But being able to help individuals so that they don't feel isolated, but they feel valued, and being able to change the physical environment, as I said earlier, to create those individual spaces. So you've got a space for quiet, you've got a space for high energy creative thinking, you've got a space for collaborative. It's almost like everything is there already, because you're working from the foundations, you're getting it all in place and thinking about everybody, because the actual word neurodiversity encompasses all brain types. We all think differently, which is a great thing. We need variety of life.
We do indeed. And thank you for that. And from that, we're building that culture. We're building that workplace and organisation. And we hear lots, and I think there's links to that around the importance of being kind. And, in the way that we talk about, mental health, and sometimes the way we talk about mental health can cause problems in itself. So how, I suppose, can we get the balance right from an employee perspective, from an employer perspective, in talking about this, so it's not, so it is a subject that everybody feels comfortable discussing?
It's definitely the only way it's going to become more comfortable is for it to become the norm. And I know we spoke earlier about the school system. The easiest way to get neurodiversity to be the norm and to be more inclusive in business is to start with schools. Because at the moment we have an education system where if children are struggling or they don't fit in, they're removed from the classroom. Maybe they go and work with a teaching assistant somewhere else, or they're excluded for whatever reason. Now, what we need to happen is to get an inclusive workforce. We need an inclusive education, because it is the neurotypical children of the future who are going to be the CEOs, the employers of the future. Now, we need Sally, who's 5, sat in her classroom, who can see that her mate Rishi, he can't sit still. Rishi really can't sit still, but he's got great ideas when he's given space, when he's able to move around. So that, and she knows he has ADHD because it's talked about in the classroom. So when 20 years later, when she's employing and she sees on the application form this person's got ADHD, she's reminded, oh, that person had really great ideas. I remember it was really creative. And then straight away, you've knocked that stigma. So that's where I personally believe it starts from. But we have to look at like the bigger picture, how it is now. There's a massive link between neurodiverse individuals and poor mental health, which is why at Thrive we talk about mental health and neurodiversity, because they are so connected. Because when you're trying to bend yourself to fit into society, trying to fit into a world that just wasn't designed for you, it's exhausting physically and mentally. The shame of struggling to do things that most people find easy is such a lot to carry. And the amount of times that I personally have like burst into tears over the fact that I can't spell. A quick LinkedIn post for most people will take me about half an hour. And it shouldn't be that hard, but it can be. So not having to carry that all the time. And there needs to be a real shift in attitude that neurodiverse individuals, we're not broken. We don't need to be fixed. And the fact that neurodiverse traits have been recorded in brains for thousands of years. And if it really was a deficit of evolution, it would have been removed by now. Yet more and more individuals are discovering that they too are neurodiverse. So there can only be one conclusion, is the neurodiverse brain, that variation, is there for a reason. And we have to all come together to support each of us. It isn't a them and us race. It's not about seeing, I don't like it when sometimes neurodiverse individuals speak about individuals who aren't neurodiverse and neurotypical, and it's like they're muggles. We're wizards and they're muggles. It's not about that either. It's we're all human beings. We will have needs, we will have thoughts and feelings, and we're all valid.
That's true, and you mentioned the kind of the positive traits, the skills, the different skill sets that people hold, and you mentioned that creativity element there when you were talking about the school, and that's where I've seen with my son. Okay, his spelling and reading, was challenging, but he's so creative, and some of the things that he's done has been amazing, and it's, I suppose, channeling and giving, providing an environment that allows us to bring forth, to identify and bring forth those skills and those strengths. Therefore, we can really help neurodiverse individuals flourish within the business.
Absolutely. That's exactly what needs to be happened. It needs to be it's just the same as if an individual's wearing glasses. We don't have to declare at interview whether we wear glasses or not. If I suddenly put my glasses on, my line manager is not going to freak out and they'd be thinking, oh my goodness, how do I manage Chezzy? She started wearing glasses. and that's where we need to be at.
Very much so. Well, Chezzy, thank you. I really do appreciate your time, your insight, and your honesty through our discussion. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you for joining us today. And, we hope you've enjoyed this conversation and found it valuable. And to learn more about Thrive and our partnership, please do visit the UK&I SUG website, which is sapusers.org, for more details. And there will be a link in the description of this podcast. So thank you very much for listening. Chezzy, thank you once more. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and do keep washing your hands.